everyone, today I wanted to talk about some books that I've read lately. Now, until today, I've always reviewed books as part of a monthly wrap-up, and I think my last one was in February. I've decided to change that. I'm still going to review all of the books that I read, but I'm not going to do it as a monthly wrap-up. I'm just going to review the books I've read when I've read some. Basically, I'm really busy at the moment. I have a lot of book-related stuff going on, as well as I recently started doing some teaching again, so I'm doing some supply work. There's also a lot going on in our family life. We're just so busy, and there isn't much time to sit and read, you know. And so I've only read maybe 2 books a month for the last few months. And I hate that I'm saying I only read, because it's not like I've got a quota to fill. I know I set a Goodreads target. I think it's 60 books or 50 books or something. But it doesn't matter if I don't get to that. And I shouldn't be reading because I've got some quota to fill. And I found recently that I'm kind of putting pressure on myself and thinking, oh, you haven't really read very much lately and you need to do your monthly wrap-up, and what are you going to say? And it shouldn't be about that. So I've decided that instead what I'm going to do is, when I have read some books, then I'll sit and talk about them. So I will still go through all of the books that I read, because I like the fact that making these videos means that I have to reflect on what I read, think about what my opinion is on them, and otherwise I might just read something, put it down, onto the next thing. I really do appreciate that needing to have an opinion and a certain amount of accountability, but I was just putting too much on myself. I want to be reminded that I like reading and that I should read some things because I enjoy it, and knowing that I'm going to make videos does give me a certain impetus to keep going, but you know, when you're in a reading slump. But yeah, I was just making myself feel bad, and reading is for enjoyment generally, even if it's for research purposes, it's still enjoyable. And so I don't want to make that into some kind of chore just so that I can make a video about it. So I will still make videos about the books that I read, but I will do it when I've read a stack of books and I feel like I have some things to say. So going forward, instead of the specific monthly wrap-ups, it will just be here's what I've read lately. So there we go. I just feel like it will fit better. If I'm not reading very much, then that's fine. It will just go longer between videos. If I read loads, then I might even make more than one video per month, for example. I'm just not going to put a specific time. Like previously, it was at the beginning of every month, and now it will just be when I've read some things. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do going forward. Now, I have 4 books that I'm going to talk about today. My last wrap-up, my very last monthly wrap-up, unless I change my mind again in the future, I was in February. So these books I read in March and in April. Excuse me, keep looking down. I've got my laptop here because a lot of the books that I've read of late have been ebooks, and so I don't have a stack to work through logically. So I've got Goodreads here so I remember what I read, in what order, and what I thought of them. I'm not sure what I'm going to do for a thumbnail because normally I'd pose with some books, but I don't have any. Oh, by the way, it was my birthday recently, so that's hence the cards. So I've completely lost where I was. Right, good. The first book that I read in this selection was Portrayals of Breasts and Breastfeeding in Literature by B.J. Epstein. I don't know if it's Epstein or Epstein. B.J. is a lecturer in literature at UEA, I believe. She's also a oh, I can't remember if she's a breastfeeding counsellor or a lactation consultant. I think she's a lactation consultant, but I'll put it below because I can't quite remember. So she is really well placed to write this book. And I was sent this book as a review copy for the Association of Breastfeeding Mothers magazine, where I periodically review some books. And I was really excited to be sent this one because, I mean, I love books about breastfeeding. I've got a little collection here, and obviously if I'm reviewing books for the ABM magazine, you know, I like books about breastfeeding. But this one, I kind of thought, oh, because I really enjoy books about breastfeeding where it views breastfeeding through a different lens, so perhaps examines, you know, cultural influences on breastfeeding or sort of societal viewpoints and things like that. I love that kind of stuff. So a book that examines how breastfeeding is portrayed and viewed and all of that stuff in literature, I was really excited and interested to read that. So in this book, basically BJ looks at a series of books in both English and in Swedish. She looks at children's books, I forget if there's some picture books, and I think there's some sort of longer books that she looked at. And then she looked at adults' books, and she was looking at fiction rather than, you know, non-fiction about breastfeeding. She was looking at how breastfeeding was portrayed in fiction. So, whereas in the children's books, there were a few commentaries on books that were sort of, this is breastfeeding, basically. So it was an interesting comparison of how breastfeeding is written about in English and in Swedish. She speaks both languages, so she's well placed to do that. And so how it's portrayed, and then culturally what's going on in those two countries, and then how that's linked to the literature. So, you know, it leads to it being portrayed a certain way, but also then how potentially the literature is feeding back into society. So very, very interesting. And basically looked at the fact that in Sweden there's a much more supportive culture of breastfeeding. Rates are higher, there's some really great breastfeeding support going on, and so that then translated into it being portrayed differently in literature as much more kind of not perfect, just everyday, you know, whereas in English literature it was much more dramatic, and I think she found less text, if I remember rightly. I forget, but very, very interesting. And really the only criticism I could say is that it was quite academic, but you would expect that with her background and also the subject, you know, the way she's approaching it. It was very much like an academic study. I mean, it essentially is like an extended academic study. Really enjoyed it. I found it very interesting. And I don't think I'd read any of the books she talked about, and obviously I don't speak Swedish, so I wasn't going to have read any of those unless there was a translation, but and that was fine. It was fine that I hadn't read them. There was enough information for me to understand what she was saying. So yeah, very, very interesting. I enjoyed that book. Then after that I read Never Let Me Go by, and I'm not going to say this name right either, am I? Kazuo Ishiguru. I've done that wrong, haven't I? I should know, because obviously that's a really well-known author and a well-known book. Anyway, I have seen this book around so much, and I think I came across it in a charity shop. I actually don't have that. That was the only physical book that I've read lately, and I don't have it because I think a charity shopped it. But I picked it up because I'd seen it around a lot, and so I thought that I would give it a go. And I often do this. I pick up a book and go, oh, I've seen lots of people read that, and I don't read the blurb. I don't actually in any way look at what the book is, what it's about, don't know anything about it. And then I just start reading it. So I just completely go in blind. And I thought that Never Let You Go was a romance, which it is in some senses. I did not know that it was a sort of dystopian book. I don't know where I was going with that. So it's so interesting. I thought it was really, really clever, beautifully written. So it's about a group of initially children, and the main character, whose name I forget, she is looking back on her experiences at this slightly weird school and her interactions with her best friend and then this boy who she clearly has feelings for, and they have sort of quite an interesting relationship. And as the book progresses, it becomes clear that these children are going to this school. I don't want to say too much because spoilers. They're going to this school because of something weird, let's say. They're going to be used for some strange purposes. And then it then follows this group into adulthood and their sort of social interactions, which is all tempered by this strange situation that they're in. And the people who care for them are also huge figures in this, and how they behave and what they think, and the sort of psychology of my dog wants to contribute. I don't know if that would have picked up. Do you know what? While I've been filming this, I have had tractors going past. We've had a blimp go past. There's been cars, there've been motorbikes, there's been the dogs. So give up stopping. that was the dog. Anyway, where was I? So it's this group of... Did you hear that? I'm sure you did. I don't even know what she was doing. There's this group of, at this point, adults, and as I say, it looks at all of their interactions. Fascinating and beautifully written. And when the sort of turn happens, I thought, why are they in this school? What's going on here? Why? And then it took a turn, and I was like, oh, right, okay. I was not expecting that because I just didn't know. Maybe everybody knows that and I don't, but it is a sort of dystopian, and I love a dystopian book, so I was thrilled. I really, really enjoyed this book. Yeah, it was good. I recommend. It's thought-provoking and it's, yeah, odd. So the next book that I read after that was Funny Girl by Nick Hornby. Now, the only Nick Hornby book I believe that I read before is what's it called? High Fidelity, because I liked the film and then I read the book, even though I know the book is well known and whatever, but I really liked the film. I used to work in a video shop, by the way, so from when I was maybe 13 till I was about, probably the last time I worked there would have been about 19. I watched a lot of films, so sometimes that's where my references come from. And I loved that book. And that film. So when I saw Funny Girl, I thought, oh, Nick Hornby, I'll pick that up. And this is an interesting one for me because I love Nick Hornby's writing, but I feel like I just didn't get this book because... So it was based in the 60s and it followed the main character who... She is crowned Miss Blackpool, and basically the moment she becomes Miss Blackpool, she just kind of goes, do you know what, I don't want this, I don't want to spend my whole year in Blackpool being Miss Blackpool, I want more. And she gives the crown to the runner-up and she leaves. She moves to London and decides to seek her fortune as an actor. And it follows her kind of trying to get acting roles and then getting a part in a sitcom, and then her relationships with the other people involved in the sitcom and sort of in her acting world and her family. And to me, Nick Hornby's writing is, from my huge experience of one previous book, you know, it's witty, it's very sort of incisive. I don't know, that's how I felt about it. And this book, I think I just didn't get it because to me, it wasn't amusing. And the reviews kind of say, oh, it's funny. And I didn't think it was funny. I thought it was just a story. I wasn't particularly bothered about the characters. And I mean, you could tell the writing was good. And I honestly think I just didn't really get it. I think that I don't have a reference to sort of 60s sitcoms. It's not a type of TV I would have watched. I think that a lot of the story centres around the sort of writing room dramas. And again, I just don't think I had a sort of reference point or an interest necessarily. So I think that this one just for me didn't really get it, because clearly when you look at the reviews, other people do get it. And actually, I passed this one on to my mother-in-law, because actually this was a physical book as well. I don't know where it is. I think I must have charity shot that one as well. I gave this to my mother-in-law, who really enjoyed it. So perhaps it's my age, perhaps it's the TV I watch. I didn't get it. So I liked the writing, but it wasn't for me like High Fidelity was. So where I thought it was really funny and clever, this one I was just a bit like, So don't take my word on this one. I just think it wasn't for me. Then the last book that I want to talk about in this little review, what should I call these? I guess just what I read lately. So the latest book in my things I read was The Right Way to Die by Jo Bavington-Jones. Now, Jo is a local author. We quite often meet at local author events. We quite often share a table. We get on really well. And I've previously read Jo's first book, which was Lucy Shaw's Not Sure, which, I mean, I'm not a big one for sort of women's literature, and it very much depends. And it was okay, but it wasn't my kind of thing. Whereas this one, I loved this book. This was fantastic. So Jo, this is a crime book, and Jo has based it in Folkestone, which is a town local to me. And so Folkestone, if you've never been there, is quite an arty place. There's been a lot of regeneration of the town through art. So there are pieces around the town everywhere. Lots of them you don't even know that it's a piece. Sort of sculptures and all sorts, and contributions by hugely well-known artists such as Tracy Emin. Is there an Anthony Gorman statue in Folkestone? I feel like there might be. Really, really well-known artists and amazing pieces of art, and that has led to bringing a lot into Folkestone. It's sort of a big thing, and so this book, she's written she's set it in Folkestone, and it's about an author who joins a writing group, and there's sort of all of the interactions between the people in the writing group, and this lockdown occurs. And I forget exactly when lockdowns start and when the project they work on starts, where the overlap is. But they decide to start writing about their ideal, maybe ideal is the wrong word, but to write their perfect murder story. And there's a lot of sort of black humour. There's a lot of talk about how they've had to look really weird stuff up, about how they've had to think about how would you hide the evidence? How would you go about it? What about you'd be caught because of this? And they've actually really had to properly plan these crimes out. So as you go through the book, when they start writing their murders, some of the chapters are then those stories. So you get the contribution from that author, and then you get everybody in the writing group's opinions about that story. And she's written these murders with the voices of those writers, and with little. It's just really cleverly done, and it's all in Folkestone. All of the stories are in Folkestone, and then there comes a murder story which is particularly gruesome, and which involves the art of Folkestone. And I don't want to say more. But basically, if you are local, I think you'll enjoy it. And also if you're a writer and you've gone to writing groups, because there is obviously a lot of observation of the writer community. And I I'm very much on the outskirts of this writing community, but I can see her reference points, and yeah, it's brilliant. It's so good. For me, it was just ideal because it's about a local town, it's about a community I'm part of, and I love what she did with that. And the fact that she weaved it all into the pandemic as well, she wrote it during the pandemic, it's really, really good. So if you enjoy... My memory card ran out. This video is a real professional affair. I don't know where I was. Basically, Jo's book is really good. I will link all of the books that I've talked about below so that you can have a look and find out more about them. I always put the link for my bookshop.org shop. You can find information about the books there, but also if you do decide to buy through there, I get a small commission. But you don't have to, it literally is just there for your information if you want to look the books up. So yeah, if you want to find out more, take a look below. And yeah, I think that's everything from me. So 4 great books this month. Yeah, it feels good to sit and talk about books that, you know, when I've got to a point where I feel like, yeah, I read a load of stuff that I liked and that I have things to say. Does that make sense? So hopefully that's how things are going to be going forward. I don't know when I'll film my next one. It could be in a month or not. So I don't know. I'm reading a really good book at the moment though. So yeah. You can also see what I've been reading on Goodreads. The link is below. And on Instagram, I have a highlight where I review books and you can see, I give them like a star rating and a short review. So you can have a look on Instagram for my Reading 2022 highlights, and you can look back, there's old ones as well, if you'd like to see what I'm reading at any given time. Anyway, let me know if you've read anything that you think that I would enjoy, and if you've read any of the books that I've talked about, let me know what you think. So please let's say that again. Please hit like if you enjoyed, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this one. Take care.